Hello. I'm really glad you're here tonight. This hour is different from the rest of the day. It doesn't ask you to decide anything. It doesn't ask you to perform or explain or keep up. It simply invites you to lie still and let your thoughts move at their own pace. As the years pass, nighttime becomes a kind of companion, a place where the mind is free to wander without interruption, where memories return, not urgently, but patiently, where understanding settles in quietly without needing words. Later in life, the mind doesn't race the way it once did. It reflects, it revisits, it connects dots that once seemed unrelated. And it does this most honestly when the lights are off and the world has gone silent. This space is for those thoughts, the ones that don't surface during the day, the ones that arrive only when you're alone with yourself, resting, remembering, and gently making sense of a long lived-in life. So take a slow breath. Let your body soften into the bed and allow this night to meet you where you are. And now, before we begin, if this kind of honest, gentle reflection speaks to you, take a moment to like this video and subscribe to the channel. And down in the comments, tell me where you're listening from and what time it is where you are right now. There's something comforting about knowing we're all here together, scattered across time zones, but united in these late hours when the world finally grows still. So settle in, adjust your pillows, find a comfortable position, and know that for the next hour, you're not alone in whatever wisdom you're carrying, whatever understanding you've earned, whatever truths rise to the surface when the lights go out. Let's begin. The room is quiet now. The day has finally let go of you, and you have finally let go of it. Whatever was urgent this morning feels distant now. Whatever demanded your attention, your energy, your presence, it has receded into the background, the way sounds fade when you move farther from their source. You are here, just here, in the dark, in the stillness. And something in that darkness wants to speak to you tonight. It wants to ask you a question that daylight never quite allows. Not a difficult question, not one that requires an answer out loud. Just this: of everything you have lived, of everything you have known and felt and carried, what has faded and what has endured? This is not a question about success or failure. It has nothing to do with what you accomplished or what you didn't. It is simply an honest reckoning with time, with the way life sorts itself as the years accumulate. Some things dissolve, some things remain, and there is a wisdom in knowing the difference, a particular peace that comes from understanding what was always temporary and what was always meant to last. So let tonight be that kind of space, a quiet sorting, a gentle inventory, not of things, but of what lives inside you, what still pulses, what went still long ago, what you've carried without knowing it, what you set down somewhere along the way and never picked back up. The night has a way of doing this work on its own. You've probably noticed that by now. The older you get, the more honest the night becomes. It strips away the performance of the day, the version of yourself you maintain for the world. Competent, composed, purposeful, that version softens here. And what's left is simply you, the real one, the one who remembers, the one who wonders, the one who is still, even now, quietly becoming. Let's start with what fades, because there is no shame in it. Things are supposed to fade. That is part of the design. What fades? You think about urgency first. The urgency that once drove you. You remember what it felt like to move through the world with that particular kind of tension in your chest. That constant hum of there is more to do, more to prove, more to become. You were always slightly behind. Always almost there, but not quite. Always preparing for the next thing before the current thing had even finished. That urgency has faded. You notice it when you lie here like this. The absence of it. The quiet where it used to live. And it's interesting, isn't it, that you don't miss it the way you thought you would. You spend so many years inside that feeling, convinced that losing it would mean losing something essential about yourself, that without urgency, you would become passive, irrelevant, left behind. But lying here now, you understand something different. The urgency wasn't the engine of your life. It was the noise around the engine. The real work was always happening beneath it, quietly, faithfully, even when you couldn't feel it. The urgency was just fear wearing productive clothing. And fear, when it finally loosens its grip, leaves behind something much better than itself. It leaves behind presence, the ability to actually be where you are, the capacity to feel the weight of a blanket and recognize it as comfort rather than a moment stolen from productivity. You think about the things you wanted so badly when you were young, not just in a general way, but specifically. You remember a particular wanting, a particular version of the future you were convinced you needed in order to be happy. The right house, the right position, the right acknowledgement from the right people. You needed things to look a certain way, to be arranged just so, for you to feel that you had arrived, that you were enough, that you had made it. That wanting has faded too. Not because you stopped caring about life, but because you learn, slowly, and sometimes painfully, that the wanting was never really about the things at all. It was about a feeling of safety, maybe, or recognition, or belonging, or permanence in an impermanent world. You were chasing feelings through objects and achievements and the opinions of others. And life, patient and persistent teacher that it is, kept demonstrating that none of those containers could hold what you were really looking for. You remember specific moments of wanting, the ambition that felt almost physical, the hunger of it. Where is that hunger now? It has quieted. And the interesting thing, the quietly remarkable thing, is that you are still here. You are still whole. The wanting left, and it didn't take you with it. What remained was not emptiness, but space. Room for something quieter, something more honest, something that doesn't need to be chased because it was already here the entire time, waiting, underneath all that noise. The need for approval has faded. This one took longer than the urgency, longer than the material wanting, because the need for approval was wrapped up in love, in belonging, in the very human requirement to be seen and valued by other people. You couldn't just decide to let it go. You had to earn your way out of it through experience, through the slow accumulation of evidence, that who you are does not depend on who else agrees. You remember the people whose opinion of you mattered so much that it governed your choices. Some of them are gone now. Some have faded from your life in other ways, distance or difference, or simply the natural drift that happens between people over time. And here is the strange mercy of that. Their opinions went with them. The judgments you feared, the disappointments you dreaded, the approval you craved. So much of it lived only in your imagination anyway. It was you imagining what they thought of you. It was you holding yourself to standards they may not have even imposed. That particular jury has largely dissolved, and the verdict you were always waiting for, the final pronouncement that you were enough, that you had done well, that you could finally relax. You understand now that it was never going to come from outside. It was always going to have to come from you, and some nights, lying here in the dark, it does come, quietly, without fanfare, a small internal settling, a recognition. You did your best with what you had and what you knew at the time. That is enough. That will always have been enough. The need to be perfectly understood has faded in its most desperate form. You spent years trying to explain yourself, to make people see who you really were beneath the surface, to be known accurately, fully, without misinterpretation or projection. You gave long explanations. You corrected wrong impressions. You felt the particular frustration of being seen as someone slightly different from who you actually were, and you kept trying to close that gap. But the urgency of that effort has softened, and what replaced it is something gentler, an acceptance that partial knowing is still knowing, that being seen imperfectly by someone who cares for you is still a form of love, that the people who loved you did love you, even without access to every chamber of your interior life, and that you loved them back the same way, imperfectly, partially, genuinely. The gap between who you are and who others think you are has stopped feeling like a problem to be solved. It simply feels like the nature of being a person in the world. Certain fears have faded. Not all fears. You're not fearless, and you don't pretend to be. But the fears that once felt enormous, the fear of being seen as foolish, the fear of failing publicly, the fear of not measuring up to some invisible standard you'd internalized so deeply you'd forgotten it came from outside you. Those fears have lost most of their power. They still visit sometimes, especially in the dark, especially in the space between waking and sleeping, when the mind is soft and defenses are low. But they don't occupy the throne they once sat on. They've been demoted from rulers to occasional visitors. You can acknowledge them and let them pass without being consumed. The false versions of yourself have faded. This is perhaps the most significant fading of all, and the one worth sitting with longest tonight. You wore so many versions. The one who always had it together, the one who was fine when they weren't, the one who didn't need help, the one who was strong when strength was what the moment seemed to require. You maintained these versions because the world seemed to reward them, because vulnerability felt dangerous, because softness looked like a liability in a world that celebrated hardness. But those versions were exhausting. The maintenance of them cost more than you knew while you were paying, and over time, the energy required to sustain the performance exceeded whatever protection it offered. You let them go, not all at once, not in one dramatic moment of liberation. Slowly, the way paint peels from a wall that has weathered too many seasons, and what was underneath wasn't weakness, it was just you, the actual, unperformed you, the one who didn't always know the right answer, the one who got things wrong and kept going, the one who needed things and sometimes asked for them and sometimes didn't, the one who was complicated and soft in some places and frightened in others and still entirely, honestly worth knowing. That version is the one lying here tonight, the real one, the one who doesn't have to be anything other than what it is. And there is a profound rest in that, a rest that goes deeper than sleep, a settling that happens somewhere beneath the body, in the part of you that has been straining to maintain an image and has finally been given permission to simply stop. The things that fade but leave their shape. Not everything that fades disappears entirely. Some things fade from the foreground of your life but leave their shape behind. Like furniture moved from a room, you can still see the impression in the carpet where it stood for years. You can still measure the space by what is no longer filling it. The absence has its own presence. You think about the people who have faded from your daily life. Not all of them are gone. Some are simply distant. Some became strangers through time or circumstance, or the particular silence that grows between people when both stop reaching at the same moment. You think about a friendship that once felt essential, a person who knew you in a specific chapter of your life in a way no one else did, who understood the version of you that existed in that particular time and place, who could finish your sentences, not because they were guessing, but because they were genuinely there with you, paying attention, tracking the real story beneath the surface story. Where is that person now? Life moved you apart, or something shifted, or they are simply gone in the final way, and yet their impression remains. You still carry the knowledge of what real friendship feels like, that particular warmth, that ease, that sense of being known without having to explain yourself. They gave you a reference point that nothing can erase. Their presence in your life, even though faded, shaped your understanding of what connection can be. And so they continue to matter, even in their absence. You think about the places that no longer exist as you knew them. Not just the buildings, though those too, but the atmosphere of them. The particular quality of light in a kitchen you loved. The specific sound of a door closing in a house that felt like safety. The smell of a place that was entirely ordinary on the surface, but extraordinary in the way it made you feel. Home. Not the building, but the feeling the building held. That feeling doesn't live anywhere you can physically visit. It lives only in here, in the dark, in the quiet, in the part of you that knows what shelter truly means because you've experienced it and lost it and carry it as a permanent internal compass. You think about versions of yourself that have faded. The 25-year-old you, the you who existed in the years before a particular loss, the you who woke up on the morning of a day that changed everything, still innocent of what was coming, still operating in the world that was about to end. those versions are gone. You can visit them in memory, but you cannot return to them. The body that held them has changed. The knowledge that reshaped them cannot be unknowed. You are always the result of everything that has happened, and the earlier versions, the untouched, unbroken, still forming ones, have dissolved into who you became. But they left their shapes. You carry the impressions. The curiosity of the child you were, the intensity of the young adult who believed everything was possible and some things were urgent, the tenderness of the new parent who learned, suddenly and completely, what it meant to love something more than yourself, the grief of the person who stood at a graveside and understood for the first time that loss was not abstract, but was the most concrete thing in the world. All of these versions faded. All of them left their mark. You are a palimpsest, layer upon layer of everything you've been. Each one faded but present, each one contributing to the texture of who you are right now, in this bed, in this dark, in this quiet. What does it mean that so much can fade and yet leave these impressions? Maybe it means that nothing is ever entirely lost, that the people and places and versions of yourself that have dissolved are still somehow present in who you are at this moment, that you are made of everything that has passed through you. The faded things are still inside you, restructured, transformed, absorbed. You carry them the way water carries the memory of stone, shaped by everything it has moved around, marked by everything it has touched, different for having been there even when there is no longer visible evidence of the contact. What fades in the specific hours of night? There is a particular kind of fading that happens only at night, not across years, not across decades, but within a single evening. Things that felt solid and pressing at noon become translucent by midnight. This is one of the gifts of darkness that people rarely name, and it is worth naming here. You've probably experienced this without quite labeling it. The disagreement that felt enormous at 2 p.m. The worry that had sharp, clear edges when you first sat down at the kitchen table and tried to think through it. The offense that someone caused, the slight that stung, the frustration with a situation that seemed insoluble. You carried all of it into the evening. You carried it into this bed. And somewhere between lying down and this moment, the edges began to soften. Not because the situation changed, but because you did. Because the night has a way of restoring perspective that the day persistently destroys. The arguments fade. The specific words, the exact phrasing of things that were said in heat, these dissolve faster than you expect. What remains is not the texture of the argument, but something underneath it. The real feeling that the argument was always about, but could never quite reach through all its noise. The longing for something, the fear beneath the anger, the love that was present even in the conflict. The argument fades, but the connection it was straining toward remains. The grudges fade in the night. Not all of them, not immediately, and some of them shouldn't. Some of them are legitimate and important. But the small ones, the accumulated catalogue of minor grievances you've filed away, the quiet ledger of small wrongs and oversights and disappointments that you carry against the people closest to you, The night softens them. It doesn't erase them, but it reduces them to their actual size, which is often much smaller than they appeared in daylight. You've noticed this. You've lain here on other nights and felt the shift. The person who irritated you this afternoon, lying here, you can also feel the love. You can hold both things at the same time, their irritating quality and your genuine affection. The night allows for this kind of complexity. It stops requiring you to choose a single feeling and stick with it. It gives you room to contain contradictions without having to resolve them. The day's embarrassments fade. This is a genuine mercy. The moment you replayed 17 times before dinner, the thing you said wrong, the impression you gave, the stumble you made in front of someone whose opinion matters to you, by now, lying here, it has shrunk. Not to nothing, but to something closer to its actual significance, which is almost certainly far smaller than it felt at the time. The night has a sense of proportion the day entirely lacks. Your own harshness fades at night. The critic you carry inside you, the one who narrates your failures in real time, who notes every mistake, who compares you unfavorably to some impossible standard, that voice quiets here. It doesn't disappear. It never entirely disappears. But in the dark, in the stillness, without the performance of daily life to evaluate, the inner critic has less material to work with. And in that relative quiet, something more compassionate can emerge. Something that sees you whole, not just your failings. Something that speaks to you the way you would speak to someone you genuinely love. What else fades? The sense of time running out, the particular anxiety of aging that the daylight hours can amplify into something almost unbearable, the awareness that you are in the later chapters of your life, that the arithmetic of years is working in one direction only, that the horizon is closer than it once was. This awareness sharpens during the day when you are surrounded by younger people, by change, by a world that accelerates past you if you aren't careful. But at night, the pace changes. Time doesn't run at night. It deepens. The hours after midnight have a weight and a presence that the hours before noon don't. In the dark, the question is not how much time remains, but what this moment holds. And this moment holds everything. This breath, this quiet, this beating heart that has been beating faithfully your entire life without once asking your permission or requiring your management. You breathe that in for a moment. The faithfulness of your own body, the extraordinary persistence of the machinery that has carried you through every single day of your existence, through childhood illnesses and adult injuries and surgeries and grief and stress and all the ways you may not have taken care of yourself as well as you should have. Through all of it, the heart beat, the lungs moved, the body kept going, and it is doing it right now. Right this moment, without drama, without complaint, simply continuing the way good things continue, without requiring applause. The night and its particular honesty. There is something the night does that daylight cannot. It removes distraction, and distraction, you've come to understand, is one of the primary ways people avoid knowing themselves. During the day, you are needed somewhere. You are engaged with something. there are tasks and conversations and responsibilities and small emergencies and the constant motion of existing in a world that always seems to require more from you. The surface of daily life keeps you on the surface of yourself. The depth is always there, always available, but rarely visited when there are things to do and people to answer and a self to maintain. But here in the dark, in the quiet, in the particular stillness that settles when the world stops asking things of you, here the depth becomes accessible. Here the questions that don't fit into daylight finally get their moment. Not anxious questions, not the ones with urgent practical answers. The deeper kind, the ones that don't require immediate resolution but simply need to be acknowledged, to be held, to be allowed their proper place in your awareness. What have you loved most? Not what should you have loved, not what was the correct or respectable or admirable thing to value, but what did you actually love? What made you feel, even briefly, even imperfectly, that being alive was a genuine gift, rather than an obligation you'd been handed without your consent? What called to something in you that couldn't be named but could absolutely be felt? What made the world feel larger rather than smaller? What made time slow down in the best possible way? The night asks this question honestly. It doesn't grade your answer. It doesn't compare your life to anyone else's. It doesn't ask you to justify or explain or apologize for whatever rises to the surface. It just waits patiently, with complete indifference to what the answer is supposed to be. And in that waiting, in that generous, unhurried silence, you find your way to the true answer, the one beneath the acceptable answer, the one that might surprise the composed, purposeful version of you that exists in daylight. You breathe in, out. The room holds you without expectation. Your body is settling deeper into the mattress, the tension you carry without noticing slowly releasing from your shoulders, your jaw, your hands. The darkness above you is the same darkness that has been above you every night of your life. The same invitation to let go, to release the grip you maintain on yourself and the world, to allow the night to be what it has always been, a sanctuary for the truest version of who you are. And in this yielding, in this quiet and deliberate release, something begins to surface, something that none of the fading has touched, something steady and persistent that has been present through every version of yourself you've ever been, something that outlasted the urgency and the wanting and the need for approval and the false constructed selves, something that has been waiting with extraordinary patience for you to get quiet enough to notice it. We are coming to that. We are coming to what endures. But first, rest here for a moment in the space between what faded and what remains. Feel the breath moving through you. Feel the weight of the night. Feel the particular kind of peace that comes from honest accounting, from sitting with the truth of what has gone and what has stayed, without grief or resistance, with only the quiet dignity of someone who has lived long enough to know the difference. Because you have lived long enough. You have seen things come and go. You have loved people who left. You have held beliefs that later changed. You have been versions of yourself that you have since outgrown. You have moved through seasons and chapters and whole eras of your life, and you are still here, still breathing, still capable of lying in the dark and wondering and feeling and making sense of things. That persistence, that endurance, is itself the beginning of the answer to the question this night is asking. What endures? You do. Some irreducible, essential you has been present through all of it, has survived the fading of everything that wasn't permanent, has outlasted the versions and the fears and the false constructions, has remained steady and quiet and continuous underneath everything else. We'll spend the next part of this night with that, with what endures, with what the darkness has never been able to touch, with the things that have accompanied you through every chapter, every loss, every transformation, the things that are so deeply you that they couldn't fade even when everything around them did. But for now, simply breathe, simply rest, simply be the person who is lying here in the dark, having lived this long, having survived this much, having earned this particular stillness. There is a difference between the darkness that frightened you as a child and the darkness you inhabit now. When you were small, the dark was full of unknown things, possible threats, the space where imagination filled in what the eyes couldn't see, and imagination in childhood so often filled those spaces with danger. You learned to sleep with a nightlight, or with the door cracked open to let in the hallway glow, or with the sound of a television in another room. Any small signal that the larger world was still there, still safe, still populated with people who would come if you called. But the darkness you live in now is different. You've been inside it long enough to know its actual texture. You know it doesn't contain what you feared. It contains something better. It contains quiet. It contains the slowed down version of yourself. It contains the part of your mind that only surfaces when everything else has gone still. The darkness is not an absence anymore. It is a presence, a generous, unhurried presence that asks nothing of you and offers everything. You think about all the nights you've moved through to arrive at this one, every dark room you've lain in, every ceiling you've studied while thoughts moved through you, every night you couldn't sleep and every night you fell asleep instantly and every night somewhere in between. All of those nights were preparing you for this capacity, this ability to be in the dark without fear, to be alone with yourself without anxiety, to face the quiet and find it friendly rather than threatening. This is not a small thing. This ease with darkness, this comfort with your own company in the silent hours, it took years to develop. It required surviving difficult nights. It required learning that the thoughts that come in the dark are not enemies, but messages. Not threats, but communications from the deeper parts of yourself that the busy day constantly interrupts. The darkness became safe because you stopped running from what it contained. You turned toward it. You let it show you what was there. And what was there, always, was just you. Just the enduring, persistent, complicated, genuine you. That you is here tonight. That you has always been here. Through every version, every chapter, every loss and celebration and ordinary Wednesday. Through everything that faded and everything that endured. Right here, breathing feeling, still in the process of becoming something, even now, even at this age, even in this quiet room in the small hours of a night that looks like every other night but isn't, because no night is. Every night that passes leaves something behind in you. Not a wound, not a scar, just a layer, just another ring added to the interior of a tree that is still living, still growing outward, still reaching towards something it can feel, but perhaps cannot name. Tonight is one of those layers. This quiet, this honesty, this willingness to sit with what has faded and what has not. It is being laid down right now. It is becoming part of you. It will be here tomorrow and next month, and in all the nights that follow this one. The accumulation of honest nights is one of the most significant things a person builds. You are not finished, not even close, but you are here. Tonight, that is everything. So here we are, on the other side of the fading, on the quieter shore where the things that couldn't be dissolved have washed up, steady and salt-worn and still entirely themselves. You spent the first part of this night with what has gone, with the urgency and the wanting and the false selves and the fears that have, over years and decades, released their grip. And there is real peace in that accounting, real rest in naming what has departed without pretending it never mattered. It mattered, and it released you, and that releasing is its own kind of grace. But now the deeper question opens, because not everything released, not everything faded. Some things held on, not because you gripped them, not because you refused to let go, but because they were never the kind of thing that could be lost. They were built into the architecture of you. They were not things you acquired, but things you are. And the night, honest and unhurried as it is, wants to show you what those things are. So breathe. Let your body settle one more degree into the mattress. Let the darkness above you be the same generous presence it has been since you closed the door and turned off the light. You are safe here. You are known here. And you are about to be shown something true. What endures? Let's begin with the most surprising answer, the one that took the longest to understand. Your capacity for wonder has endured, not wonder in the childhood sense, that wide-eyed, breathless, nothing has been seen before quality that belongs to the very young. That version of wonder did fade, and rightly so. You learned how things worked. You built context. You accumulated knowledge and experience. And the understanding that comes from having been around long enough to see patterns repeat. That early wonder couldn't survive alongside wisdom. It didn't need to. But a different wonder took its place. Quieter, deeper, more earned. The wonder that comes not from ignorance, but from knowing, from understanding enough about the world to recognize how extraordinary it remains despite everything you know about it. You've seen how a human life is constructed, how fragile the whole enterprise is, how many things have to go right simultaneously for a single ordinary day to unfold without disaster. And still, most days, it does. The sun comes up. People love each other imperfectly but genuinely. Bread rises in ovens. Children laugh. Music exists. This is remarkable. And you know it is remarkable in a way that only someone who has lived long enough to understand the alternative can truly know. You feel this wonder at unexpected moments, not in grand places, not at famous sights or impressive spectacles, but in small, specific, irreplaceable moments. The quality of late afternoon light in autumn, the particular silence that follows rain, the way a familiar piece of music can open a door in your chest that you didn't know was closed, the sound of laughter from another room, the smell of something being cooked by someone who loves you. These moments still arrive, they still land with their full weight. You haven't become numb to them. After everything, all the loss, all the change, all the accumulated weight of a long life, you can still be stopped by beauty, still be arrested by it, still be made momentarily breathless by the fact that the world contains this particular thing at this particular moment, and you are here to receive it. That is not nothing. That is extraordinary. That is something a great many people lose long before they should. And you haven't lost it. Even now, lying in the dark, you can feel the echo of the last moment that stopped you that way. It wasn't long ago. It never is. Your love has endured, not in its original form. Love changes shape over decades, the way rivers change the landscape they move through. Always the same essential thing, but constantly reshaping what surrounds it. The love you carry now is not the love you carried at 25. It is not as loud. It does not announce itself the same way. It does not arrive with the desperate urgency of early love. That hunger, that terror, that conviction that the other person is necessary for your survival. That version of love was real, but it was also partly fear. Fear of loss, fear of solitude, fear disguised as devotion. The love you carry now is quieter, and in being quieter, more honest. It knows what it has survived. It has been present through the fights and the silences and the misunderstandings and the seasons when connection felt impossible, and the slow, patient work of return. It has watched people change and chosen to love the changed versions. It has grieved the people it lost and kept loving them through the grief, which is a kind of love that requires enormous courage and gets almost no recognition for the courage it requires. You love differently now, more consciously, more deliberately, with the understanding that time is not unlimited and that love, like all precious things, requires tending. You have stopped taking for granted the people who remained. You have started to notice more than you used to what it actually means that they are still here, still calling, still showing up, still choosing you and you choosing them, in the ongoing and unremarkable and completely miraculous way that two people continue to choose each other across the long span of a shared life. Your love has endured. It is here right now. Even in this bed, even in this dark, even in this solitude, love is present. In the people you will speak to tomorrow, in the names that surface, unbidden, at the edge of sleep, in the ache that lives alongside gratitude when you think of someone who is gone. Love that outlasts the person it was directed at is still love. It is, perhaps, the most enduring kind. Your humor has endured. this one is underestimated. People don't often list humor among the things that matter most. But lying here, you know differently. You know because you can remember the moments when nothing else worked, when grief or fear or exhaustion had taken everything from you and left you hollowed out. And then something small and absurd happened, or a particular memory surfaced, and you laughed. Against your will, almost. Despite everything, that laugh was not a betrayal of the difficulty. It was proof of life. It was the deepest part of you asserting that the difficulty had not won completely, that something in you was still free enough, still light enough, still itself enough to find the world funny in spite of everything it had done. Your particular sense of what is funny is as specific to you as your fingerprint. It developed over decades of living in the world, absorbing its contradictions, watching its absurdities play out, learning to find the gap between what humans intend and what actually happens. That gap is bottomless and endlessly comic, and you know it better than you ever did before. The things that make you laugh now are more sophisticated and also more fundamental than they used to be. You laugh at the right things. You laugh with people more than at them. You have learned to use humor not as a wall, but as a bridge, as a way of reaching across the distance between people and saying, I see the same thing you see. Isn't it something? Aren't we something? That humor is yours. It was never going to fade. It is made of the same material as your essential self, and the essential self does not fade. Your curiosity has endured. The questions haven't stopped. If anything, they've deepened. Early in life, you asked questions because you were trying to establish basic facts about the world. How things worked, what things meant, who you were supposed to be. Those questions had the quality of exams. They felt urgent in a pressured way, as though the wrong answer would disqualify you from something important. But the questions you carry now are different. They don't have the quality of exams. They have the quality of conversations, with time, with experience, with the mystery of existence itself. You wonder about consciousness, about what it means to have been here, present in this particular body, during this particular century. You wonder about the people you didn't understand while they were alive, and understand more now. You wonder about the versions of your life that didn't happen, not with regret, or not only with regret, but with genuine philosophical curiosity. What kind of person would that have made you? What would you have learned that you didn't? What would you have missed? These questions don't need answers. That's the gift of curiosity in its mature form. It has learned to love the question more than it needs the answer. It has learned that living inside a genuine question is richer and more interesting than most answers. You're still curious, still interested, still leaning toward the world with something that wants to understand it better. That lean, that orientation toward rather than away, is one of the most enduring things about you. The endurance of your values. Your values have endured. Not the rules you were given. Many of those you've examined, questioned, kept what held up, released what didn't. Not the expectations you inherited, some of which turned out to be fears in disguise, but the actual values, the ones that turned out to be truly yours, the ones that, when tested, revealed themselves as non-negotiable. You know what those are? Lying here in the dark, they are clear to you in a way that they sometimes aren't in the noise of daily life. You value honesty, not the brutal kind that uses truth as a weapon, but the gentle, consistent kind that refuses to participate in comfortable fictions. You've paid costs for that honesty. You've had conversations that would have been easier if you'd said less than what was true. You've watched relationships strain under the weight of truths that needed to be spoken, and you've said them anyway because you couldn't not. Because something in you was built to prefer difficult honesty over comfortable falsehood, and that preference has turned out to be structural. It doesn't bend under pressure. It didn't fade with time. It is simply part of what you are. You value kindness, not sentimentality. You know the difference. Sentimentality is comfortable emotion at a safe distance, but real kindness requires presence. It requires actually seeing the person in front of you and adjusting yourself in response to what you see. It requires inconvenience sometimes. It requires effort when effort is not required and would not be noticed if you withheld it. You've practiced this kindness your whole life, and it has not worn you out. It has, if anything, become more natural, more automatic, as though the decades of practice have built a kind of moral muscle memory. You reach toward people now without having to remind yourself to reach. The reaching has become instinct. You value loyalty, the staying, the showing up, the being there for people not only in the dramatic moments that make staying feel meaningful, but in the ordinary, unremarkable. Nobody is keeping score moments that actually constitute most of a life. You have stayed when staying was difficult. You have returned after departures. You have kept promises that nobody would have held you to if you'd broken them. You did these things not because they were witnessed or rewarded, but because the alternative, the abandonment, the breach, the betrayal of someone's reasonable trust in you, was genuinely not something you could live with. The loyalty is yours. It endures. It will not leave you now. What the body remembers. There is something else that endures, and it lives not in the mind but in the body. The body remembers, not in words, not in stories, but in its own language, in muscle and bone, and the particular way you hold yourself when you feel safe, in the way your breathing changes when you hear a specific piece of music, in the involuntary softening that happens when you smell something that belongs to a beloved place or person. The body is an archive, and it endures. Your hands remember everything they've done, every person they've held, every task they've performed, every tool they've learned, every gesture of comfort they've offered, the hand on the shoulder, the squeeze of fingers, the arm around someone smaller and frightened. Your hands carry all of this. They know things that your conscious mind has long since filed away. They are made of their history. Your chest remembers love, grief. The two are indistinguishable sometimes, stored in the same location, accessed by the same key. You felt this, the way a certain kind of missing lives in the body as a physical sensation. Not just emotion, but actual sensation. An ache that lives in the sternum, a heaviness behind the ribs. The body doesn't distinguish between then and now when it comes to what mattered most. It keeps those feelings alive and available. And lying here, when you let your chest soften and your breathing slow, sometimes what comes up is not a thought, but a feeling. A wordless knowing of someone or something you loved. The body offering up what the mind has no adequate language for. Your feet remember places, the specific texture of floors you've walked on, grass, sand, the particular hardness of city pavement versus the giving quality of forest ground. Your feet have carried you through the entire geography of your life, every place you've ever stood, every threshold you've crossed, every long walk and every tentative step into unfamiliar territory. They know the terrain of your life in a way that nothing else does. This is what the body holds. This is what endures in the flesh and the sinew. This accumulated knowledge, this physical record of a life lived, this archive that cannot be burned or lost or revised, it is yours. It travels with you into sleep and back out again. It will be with you until the very end. And it is not a small thing to carry. It is the most tangible proof that you have been here, that you moved through the world and the world moved you back. The endurance of your story. Your story has endured. This is perhaps the most important thing to say in the dark, in the quiet, in this particular hour between waking and sleep. You have a story, a specific, unrepeatable, singular story that no one else has or could have, because no one else has been you, not approximated you, not resembled you, actually been you, with your specific combination of circumstances and choices and losses and survivals and loves and failures and moments of grace and moments of complete human inadequacy. That story is not finished. Even now, even at this stage of your life, even in this bed tonight, new chapters are being written, not in the obvious ways of youth, not in the dramatic ways of middle age, but in the quieter, deeper ways of later life. The chapter being written now is about wisdom, about integration, about looking back and forward simultaneously and finding somehow that both directions contain more than you expected. You are not a completed thing. You are not a monument to what you once were. You are a living, breathing, still developing person who went to sleep tonight and will wake up tomorrow. And the waking will not be a repetition, but a continuation. A next sentence in a story that is still being told. Think about the stories you carry that no one else carries. The specific memories that exist only in you. The precise way someone laughed who has been gone 20 years. The exact words of a conversation that changed something fundamental in the direction of your life. The sensory detail of a place that no longer exists. The way it smelled, the temperature of it, the feeling of standing there before you knew it would become a memory worth keeping. All of that lives in you and only in you. When you sleep tonight, you take it with you into the darkness. When you wake, you bring it back into the light. You are the keeper of things no archive could hold, no book could contain, no other living person knows. This is not a burden. It is a trust, a beautiful and serious trust, to carry the specific, irreplaceable record of what you have witnessed, loved, and survived. to be the living continuity between a past that cannot speak for itself and a present that sometimes forgets to look back. You remember, that is not a small thing. That is an act of love performed in real time, every day, simply by continuing to be here. Your story has influenced other stories in ways you will never fully know. The people you shaped without knowing you were shaping them. The words you said on particular days that someone carried for years and maybe carries still. The example you set, imperfect, inconsistent, but genuine. That someone younger was watching and absorbing and quietly calibrating their own sense of what a life could look like. You have mattered in ways you cannot measure. You have contributed to other people's stories in ways that will outlast you. This is what endures beyond you. The ripples, the influence that moves outward from a life well tried, not necessarily well executed, but genuinely, honestly, persistently tried. Every person who loved you carries something of you. Every person you taught, formally or informally, carries something of you. Every child who passed through your life and felt safe or seen or encouraged carries something of you into their own future, and they will pass it along in turn to people you will never meet. This is not a small legacy. This is an enormous one, even if it is invisible, even if it is unrecorded. The final endurance. And finally, the thing that endures most completely, the thing that all the fading has been pointing toward, the thing that required all those years, all those losses, all those versions of yourself and the releasing of them to fully understand. You endure, not the versions, not the costumes and the constructions and the public face and the private fears, but the essential you, the witness behind all of it, the quiet, continuous, unbroken awareness that has been present in every single moment of your life. Observing, feeling, registering, responding. That has never once been absent, never once gone dark, never once been replaced by something else. That awareness is here right now. It is what is listening to these words. It is what felt the sadness when certain memories surfaced tonight. It is what smiled, however slightly, when something rang true. It is what breathed patiently and continuously through every moment of the hour you've spent here. It has no age. It cannot be exhausted. It cannot be dimmed by grief or time or loss or the slow physical wearing of a body that has been lived in for many decades. Consider what that means. You have been many things over the course of your life. You have been afraid and brave and selfish and generous and confused and clear and broken open and put back together, imperfectly, more than once. You have been through circumstances that changed you. You have made choices that shaped you. You have been acted upon by the world in ways that left marks you still carry. And through every single one of those moments, the same essential witness was present, the same quiet noticing, the same fundamental you, watching, feeling, continuing. That witness never had a bad year. It never burned out, or gave up, or became someone else entirely. It was simply there. Through the good chapters and the unbearable ones, through youth and its beautiful ignorance, through middle life and its relentless demands, through later life and its deepening questions. Always there, always the same, always you at your most foundational. This awareness is the most enduring thing about you. And it is also, when you get very quiet and very still, the most comforting. Because it means that underneath all the change, underneath all the fading, underneath everything that has come and gone and come again, something has remained absolutely constant. Something has been here the whole time. Something that is you at your most fundamental. And it is not going anywhere. Not tonight. Not while you breathe. Not while you lie here in the dark and feel the weight of the blankets and the particular texture of this hour and the quiet that holds you without asking anything in return. You have lived long enough to know what endures. You didn't know it at 25. You couldn't have. It takes the full passage of time to understand what time cannot touch. It takes losing things to know what cannot be lost. It takes the accumulation of nights like this one, honest, quiet, unguarded nights, to come to the settled understanding that what you are at your core has always been enough, has always been real, and will remain so regardless of what else changes. This is the gift of the later chapters, not the only gift, but one of the most significant. This settled knowing, this peace that is not passive but earned, this rest that goes deeper than the body into the bedrock of who you actually are. The night completes itself. The night is completing itself around you now. You can feel it, the way the darkness has changed quality over the hours. From the dark of early evening, still carrying the residue of the day, to this dark, this final dark, this particular stillness that belongs only to the smallest hours, when the world has gone as quiet as it gets. You've traveled far tonight, not in miles, in time, in understanding. You moved through the territory of everything that faded, the urgency, the wanting, the need to be seen and approved and perfectly understood. You sat with the impressions left behind by things that dissolved. You felt the particular mercy of the night dissolving the smaller irritations, the grudges, the embarrassments, the harshness you direct at yourself when the day allows it. And then you moved into the territory of what endures, the wonder that deepened rather than fading, the love that changed shape but never changed nature, the humor that found the absurdity in everything and kept you free, the curiosity that stopped needing answers and learned to love the questions, the values that turned out to be structural, the body that remembered everything, the story that is still being told, the essential, continuous, undiminishable you. You've carried all of this tonight. You've let it move through you. You've allowed the night to do what it does best. Hold you without judgment while you remembered who you actually are beneath everything you've been through. And now you are tired, really tired. The kind of tired that comes after honest thinking, after real feeling, after allowing yourself to be seen, even if only by the darkness, even if only by the part of yourself that knows the truth and has been waiting with tremendous patience for a quiet moment to say it. Let the tiredness come. Let it move through your body, the way water moves through dry ground, finding every parched place and filling it. Let it take the weight from your shoulders. Let it soften the thoughts that are still circling. Let it bring you down, gently, into the rest you have more than earned. You have been honest tonight. You have been brave in the particular way that nighttime bravery requires. Not the loud courage of action, but the quiet courage of stillness, of sitting with yourself long enough to see clearly, of not turning away from what the dark illuminates. That is enough, more than enough. You've done what this hour asked. Now the hour is asking something different. It is asking you to release it, to allow the thinking to complete itself, the way a piece of music completes itself. Not suddenly, not all at once, but with a gradual settling into resolution, into silence, into the particular piece that follows something that has been truly heard. Let your breathing slow. It already is, isn't it? The breath has been doing this on its own, slowly deepening, slowing, without your instruction. Your body knows what comes next. It has done this thousands of times. It knows how to cross from waking into sleep. You don't have to manage it. You don't have to help. You only have to stop resisting. Stop holding on. Stop keeping yourself at the surface when the depth is right here, right below you, ready to receive you. The things that faded are at rest tonight. They've been acknowledged. They've been honored for what they were, even as their departure has been recognized as necessary and right. They can rest now. You gave them their moment. You held them one last time in the lamplight of your attention before setting them gently down. The things that endure need no tending tonight. They don't require your vigilance. They will be here in the morning without any effort on your part. Your wonder, your love, your humor, your curiosity, your values, your body with its faithful archive, your story with its chapters still unwritten, your essential self, that continuous quiet awareness, that deepest you, all of it will be exactly where you left it when you open your eyes tomorrow. It always is. It always has been. It does not leave while you sleep. So you can sleep. You can really sleep. Not the tense surface sleep of someone still gripping the day, but the deep, releasing, genuinely restoring sleep of someone who has done the honest work of this hour and earned the rest that follows it. Everywhere across the world tonight, other people are lying in beds like this one, in rooms lit by the same kind of dark, breathing slowly, letting the day complete itself. And many of them are older, like you, and they too are navigating the particular terrain of later life. The fading and the enduring, the releasing and the holding, the grief and the gratitude that live so close together in the heart of someone who has loved long and lost some of what they loved and continued anyway. You are not alone in this. You have never been alone in this. The experience of lying in the dark and taking honest account of a life. This is as old as human darkness, as old as the first person who lay beneath the first night sky and thought, what was this? What did it mean? What remains? You are part of that long human conversation. Your reckoning tonight joins all the reckonings that came before. Your understanding adds itself to the accumulated wisdom of everyone who ever grew old enough to know what endures. And somewhere, in some room you will never see, on some night you won't know about, someone is listening to something very much like this and feeling less alone because of it. Because your willingness to be honest with yourself, to sit with the real questions, to hold the real answers. Send something outward, a kind of warmth, a kind of signal that it is possible to look honestly at a life and find it worthy, that the dark is not threatening but clarifying, that what endures is always more than what fades. Always. That is not a small thing to be part of. That is everything. Rest now. Let the thoughts go quiet. Let the memories settle like snow settling, not violently, not suddenly, but slowly, softly, covering everything in the same gentle white silence. Let the night hold you the way it has always held you, without condition, without judgment, with nothing required in return but the willingness to be still. You have earned this rest, not by doing enough or being enough in the eyes of anyone outside yourself. You earned it by simply showing up tonight with honesty. Let what faded go completely. Let it drift. Let it dissolve into the dark where temporary things belong. It served you. You honored it. It is done. Let what endures remain, quietly and without fanfare, exactly as it always has. It needs no acknowledgement. It will be there. It has always been there. It is the ground beneath everything else. And let yourself, this person, this life, this specific and irreplaceable experience of being you in this world at this time, let yourself rest, without apology, without the sense that there is something else you should be doing or thinking or feeling. There is nothing else. Not tonight. Tonight, you have done what needed to be done. You looked honestly at what time took. You looked honestly at what time couldn't touch. And you found, as you always find when you look honestly, that what remains is more than enough. It is, in fact, everything. The fires die down, the stories settle, and the world grows still. Let your thoughts drift away like embers on the wind. Good night. You've journeyed far through time tonight. Now it's time to journey into dreams. Close your eyes. Breathe and let sleep find you.